And I am a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I want to talk with you about two ways your trauma could be wreaking havoc in your relationships. And I'm going to make that plural, relationships, so I'll correct that later. Um, but I want to talk about this because this is something that, as a trauma specialist, I am always on the lookout for. And I think that if you have this information, you also can be on the lookout for this. And the more you can become aware of this, the more you can stop this from you can prevent this from really wreaking havoc in your relationships. And then really figure out what's at the root and really resolve this, because these two issues come from the same thing. It comes from trauma. And if you don't resolve them at the root of the issue, then you really don't get out of them, because these are survival strategies. And so, this is just so important, because I think that a lot of our marriages are really struggling because of this. I think a lot of our friendships are really struggling from this. And I think we're driving each other crazy because we don't understand what's going on. And I want you to understand, because I want you, number one, I want you to not feel like there's something wrong with you. I want you to understand that this is what trauma does. And once you figure that out, then you can solve the real problem, which is not you. It is trauma, and how trauma is affecting your brain and your behavior. And so, but also I think that as you understand this, you have more tolerance for yourself and for the people around you, because I've said before that mental illness is closer than what we think, and all of us go through trauma at some point in time. And so when you see these behaviors come up, you can really be like, oh, Rachel was talking about this. So I want to explain this to you like Dan Siegel explained to me. And when he did this, I'm absolutely a fangirl of Dan Siegel. But when he explained this, I was just like, oh, that makes total sense. Perfect. Thank you for giving me words for that. And let me get back to work over here in my practice. So, and I'm going to explain it to you like he did, except for it'll be Rachel style. And so what he said and what happens in life is that in life, it's like a river, right? And it's flowing. And when you're in the flow of this, you're moving, and maybe you're sailing, and you are navigating the waters of life, and you're adjusting, and you're flexible, and you're flowing, and you're going places. Sometimes what happens in life is something happens to create a traumatic event, right? And it's like maybe you lose your boat, or maybe you run into another boat, or maybe someone takes your boat, or something happens, or maybe you accidentally lose it, or who knows what happens. But all of a sudden you're in the water, and it's traumatic, and you're trying to survive, and you are swimming to one of the shores. And on the shores, one of the shores is chaos. And when you get there, to survive, you become very chaotic. And everything is chaos over there. And, and it keeps us safe, because we're not in that water where we got traumatized. And we're just going to no rules, no structure, no nothing. We can't be controlled. Anything that looks like control is triggering us, and we are not okay with that. And we have to create chaos everywhere we go. And on the other side of the river is, I just got a bing on my thing. I know you heard that. But on the other side of the river is rigidity. And on the rigid side, when you land over there, everything has to be rigid. Everything has to be straight and narrow. Everyone has to do what you tell them to do. Everybody must work very hard to keep you safe. And they have to do it just like this. And on this side, this is where we have people landing, and you have to control everybody. And so these are the people that are called control freaks, and they're on that side of the river because they're trauma. And really, they're not. What we want to do is we want to get everyone back on the river where they're flowing, and where they're flexible, and where they can kind of get a bit close to the bank of chaos, and they can get back in the middle and be flowing again. And maybe they'll go over to rigidity, and they'll flow. And that is really healthy, because there's a time for everything. There's coming and going, and there's some structure, and there's some, you can choose which skills you're going to use to navigate the rivers of life. But if you have trauma, you're not flowing. You're you're parked on the side on the land, and maybe you're in Chaosville or maybe you're in Rigidville, and whichever one, it's really frustrating and hard because it's all about safety, and it's all about maintaining a sense of internal safety and structure, even though structure could be chaos and no structure, or absolute structure and everything structured. And you have to be very careful of who gets in and what's said, and don't say this and don't say that. If you're living with somebody like this, or if you are that person, this is really hard, right? Because in order for you, because you can't create an internal sense of safety, you have to create an external sense of safety. And that's really hard because who can you control in life, right? But people caught up in this type of effects of trauma really go to great lengths to control everyone in their life. And as a matter of fact, they will clear out of their life anybody who can't be controlled. And this creates all its own kind of insecurity. It creates a lot of insecurity in both of the participants in the relationship. You know, this is really hard for children when they have parents that they're working out their trauma, or they're keeping themselves safe from the emotional wounds of trauma by making sure everything's rigid. Right? We saw this with the Great Depression and how everything was scarce, and then you had to eat everything on your plate, and you had to, you know, things like that. Like, we have traumas, and then you have to behave in very strict ways, and that is just hard because it doesn't allow for the full expression of yourself if you're experiencing this type of thing, and it doesn't allow for the full expression of the people around you. And in order to be loved by you or to get loved by you, they have to squeeze themselves into very small boxes, right? And that is hard. And hey, that's where I ended up in control freak land. So I have no judgment for you. I have no stones to throw, and it really takes a lot of courage to start healing those things so you can really get back in. So it's not like I don't want you to start calling yourself a control freak. I want you to have compassion on yourself. I want you to understand that you got this way. Like, you're trying to create a sense of safety for yourself. Like, if something happened, it wasn't safe. Maybe people laughed at you. Maybe now you have to make sure that your clothes fit exactly right, and they cover anything that needs to be covered, and that, you know, there's exact order. And, you know, there's lots of things that people will do to maintain, to be able to keep themselves safe. And loving us can be really challenging. And so, but I want you to be aware of that, because I want you to start seeing yourself and seeing this rigid structure that you're putting in place. I want you to see that as your attempt to keep yourself safe, your attempt to create a safe environment where you can thrive. Everybody deserves that, right? And I want you to know that as you heal the emotional wounds inside, you just are able to start creating an internal sense of safety. And when you do that, you can take more risks. What happens then is you start to get a little closer to the water, and you say, I wonder if I could float on that again. And then you kind of go back and you keep working and you keep trying to heal yourself, and you do heal yourself, and you start to clear those emotional wounds. And what we're doing there is we're helping the brain shift out of survival mode and back into thinking center, where all things are possible. And so when you get there, you keep healing and you keep doing that work. And the next thing you know, you try to start swimming again. You try to get out back into the waters of life, and you try to build that flexibility up. And maybe you'll get scared and you'll jump back over here on rigid land and make sure everything's controlled and nice and exactly ordered as you would like it to be. Right? And that's okay, because you're growing and you're learning and you're getting back in there. You're getting back in the waters, and it's scary out there. And so that's tough. We'll talk about that again, but let's go back to the other side where it's chaos. And over here, you see people without, like, needing chaos to survive, needing to not be held down into commitments, needing to be free, needing to feel like they could leave at any moment. We need, not knowing if they're coming or going, not wanting to be nailed down to anything, not kind of having a feel of being unreliable, and you know, just. And maybe lots of their life is falling apart. Maybe they need problems all the time so that they can really start to feel like they're doing something, right? They need to be able to create this chaos to feel safe and comfortable. And that can be hard for people like me to be in a relationship with because I need control. We're going to talk about me in a second, right? We're going to talk about all the control people in a second because guess what? We're all relating with each other all the time. And that's what makes all of this really wacko, right? But over here, in order to feel safe, that's what these people need. They need to have chaos and they need to have disorder. And maybe, and that's really what makes them feel safe. But as they heal the emotional wounds, and they start to heal the stuff that the survival center is really afraid of, and all of a sudden they get their emotional wounds, they get them through the healing pathways and resolving, and their prefrontal cortex comes on, which is your thinking center, and next thing you know, they're problem solving. How can I get back out there? They're not worried about, no, I can't go, it's too scary. Now they're thinking, I wonder what kind of raft I could make. I wonder if maybe this time, if I do this and I do that, maybe I'll be okay out there. And well, let me see. And then they start to get closer to the waters of life. And they're realizing that it's going to take flexibility. It's going to take flow. It's going to take some commitment. It's going to take maybe they're going to get close to over here on rigid land, and maybe they're going to want to flow back. And maybe in the while first, they want to stay really close to chaos. And maybe when they're on there, they want to, they just want to, they're floating, but they can see the land, they can go into chaos anytime they need to so that they can stay safe and feel free and feel unrestrained, right? And so they're over here, and maybe they take breaks, and maybe they jump back off, but they keep healing, and they keep doing this work, and they feel safer, and they feel more capable, and they feel more self-confident. And as that stuff starts to increase, they start feeling a little bolder, and they keep trying new ways of getting back out on the water. And the next thing you know, they're navigating the waters again, and they're like, I remember this. Or this feels great if it's their first time. Sometimes we are raised in chaos from a very early age, right? Sometimes we're raised in rigidity from a very early age, and we just didn't know what this was like to float in the water like this. We haven't built those neurotransmitters to flow and do this. But now we're doing this healing work, and we're practicing, and we're exercising our brain in new ways, and we're firing and rewiring new neural pathways, and all of a sudden we're learning these things, and we have more flexibility. We have more flexibility of emotion. We're not just only angry, right? We're not just only happy all the time, happy for everybody all the time, right? No, we have all these feelings now, and we can navigate them. And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, we are floating down this river, and we're looking good. Matter of fact, we're starting to do tricks on our boat. We're waving to the people on the shore, and we're like, hey, yeah, I've been there. I know what that land's like over there, but look at me now, And there's all this stuff that's happening, and it's good. Now, let me tell you, you may be somebody who is still on one of the banks, right? You may be living in chaos or living in rigidity. And if that's so, then you're doing what you're doing, right? And that's just, it's important for you. One, I just want to bring this to your awareness because I want you to start seeing the problem as it really is and not thinking that you're the problem. Because if you think you're the problem, you're missing this whole thing. You're not getting the point. And the real problem is going unaddressed. And so you can't solve a problem if you don't focus on the problem. So what happens is a lot of times we get in relationships with people who are part of our healing process, right? And so sometimes we get into, if we're in chaos and we get into relations with more people of chaos, oh my gosh, there's just so much chaos, and we just want to get off the chaos bus, and we're like, how did I get over here in chaos land? And they start to fix it, okay? And then there's people that are rigid, and they're so rigid, and then they interact with other rigid people, and they can't make them do the rigid thing because this one wants to control that one, and that one wants to control this one, so that they can both be safe. And now they're having power struggles because we need to control people, and we need to control you, and so then they realize that this sucks and this doesn't work, and it's exhausting to try to control other people, and it is. And so they figure out, like, hey, I don't want this. I don't want to be like this anymore. How can I become more flexible? How can I flow? And then sometimes there's the magical, horrible thing, but it's all part of the healing process. But sometimes two people from the opposite sides of the bank Start relating with one another. And this is something. Because this one wants to control this one, and this one wants to be free and wants there to be no rules at all. And so they're trying to negotiate this thing, and one is doing things that's destabilizing the other ones, and the other one is feeling unsafe with this one, and this one's feeling unsafe with that one, but they love each other, but it's just not okay because every time they get together, they destabilize people, and they just create a mess for each other. And this is hard. And if you're in this kind of relationship, I want you to understand that this is not about you. This is not about you don't love each other enough. This is not about anything. This is just about your trauma. This is about how you are relating to your trauma. And guess what? When we are interacting with people, we are interacting with it's a mirror, right? We are interacting with people to this is so deep. I didn't expect to go this deep, but we're interacting with people to see who we really are and to hope that we can find love and to love, because we need that flow. We need to love and be loved. Some of us, I'm getting way off, but some of us have stuff going on in our lives where we're only giving love and we're not receiving. Okay, and that's a lot of the rigid people. Right? We do a lot of giving, but no receiving, because, hey, we don't know what that love's like. We don't know if it's going to come in, if it's going to destabilize us. We don't know if it's going to feel good, if it's not. Like, I don't know. I could lose control of the love that I'm experiencing right now. And then we've got the chaos people. A lot of times they're receiving the love and they're not giving as much back, right? Because they don't want to commit to that. Like, that's a lot. Like, I don't know if I want to give love like that. I don't know if I want you to depend on me to give you love. Like, I don't know. And so they've got a different flow going on, and it's sometimes it's like the rigid people. It's like they see the chaos people as projects. I just want to, you're my project, and I'm going to help you be nice and controlled, and it's going to be great. You can see that this is a mess, right? And then the chaos people, they're like, hey, loosen up, have fun, rigid people. This is great, and they're the life of the party. And so and really, if these two people can figure out how to solve their trauma and heal their trauma responses and see if they want to get out in life, you could have a really amazing partner on this life raft, right? But it's all about healing your trauma. And that's what it's all about. And sometimes we can be like, they just don't listen to me. If you just do what I said, we wouldn't be having these problems. But no, that's not real. That's not a real thing. You're going to keep having, problems with control and problems with trust and problems with relaxing and problems with being able to enjoy your life if you don't heal your trauma and if you don't heal the emotional wounds. Because your survival center is, while you have emotional wounds, all it's focused on is you surviving. And so a lot of these behaviors are so compulsive, they're not even at the thinking level yet. They are on the survival level. And so these are things you don't really have a choice of. Have you ever found yourself being absolutely chaotic and you're like, okay, we could stop now, and it's like, no, I can't pull myself back. Or you're finding yourself being controlling and you're so far in, you just can't uncontrol it. Like, you got to just finish it. Like, you just got to finish this. That's because this is under compulsion. When you're in your survival center, it shuts down your thinking center. Like, sometimes only about 20% of your thinking center is going. I mean, imagine trying to live your life and you can only use, this is the best parts of you. I mean, this is like all of your morals, right? I mean, you don't want your morals shut down, but your survival center can shut your morals down. This is why we yell at our children when we don't even agree with that, right? This has to do with our problem solving. This is why if you have a problem and you can't get it past your survival center, you don't get to solve your problem, or you have to wait for somebody else to, because you can't get it to your problem solver, which is right up in here. And that's most of the work I actually help people do is get this problem through the healing pathways so that it can actually go into the part of the brain that solves problems, because that's what you need. You need your brain to solve your problems. And guess what? Your brain is awesome at that. And so I just went off on this huge tangent, but I was supposed to be talking about I was supposed to be talking about chaos and rigidity. So let's see, maybe that happened. um, yeah, I can't think of anything else to say about that. But really, what happens is as you heal these things, your survival center allows your thinking center to take over because it's like, oh, this isn't that dangerous because it's getting healed. And Cassandra says always stuck in survival mode. Yes, this is a real challenge, and this is why it's so important to really learn the strategies for shifting yourself out of survival mode. There are some powerful strategies for this, and guess what? Once you learn how to use these, you can use them for yourself as much as you want, and I encourage you to use it as much as possible, and definitely for you too, Cassandra. And so I'm going to read a couple of these things. I'm so very rigid. Okay. And I don't like it when other people do anything that I find wrong, from the way they slurp a drink, weird behaviors, lying, violence, people are just hard. Yes, these are symptoms of trauma. Not being able to tolerate others is trauma. Not being able to allow people to do things the way they want to or in a way that's different than yours absolutely is a trauma response. And as a matter of fact, tolerating emotions and the ability to tolerate emotions and a huge emotional expanse has to do with emotional wellness. If we can't tolerate that, we start narrowing it down, and we begin to start feeling more and more numb, or more and more of limited emotions, like where we start to feel like only happy and irritable or frustrated or safe. So we're going to just stay in there. We don't want to be too happy, because remember the last time we got really happy, remember that one bad thing happened. And when that bad thing happened, that taught us that it's not okay to be happy. So we can't really be too happy, because it could be taken away, and I don't know if I can handle that. That's a trauma response, right? So now you're being controlling on how happy you can be. Or maybe if somebody was angry and you saw them be angry and it really traumatized you, maybe you learned, I have to make sure everyone around me stays happy and okay. Like if anybody starts to get upset, I need to make sure that I get in there and I make sure that they're okay, because I can't have anybody getting mad, because then that one thing could happen again and I'm not going for that. And your limbic system really thinks like this. Your survival center is thinking like this all the time. It is so dramatic in there. It is so dramatic. It is so fatalistic. Like, it's like, if this thing happens, we'll just die. If this thing happens, we'll just explode. If this thing happens, I'll just be devastated and annihilated. And that part of the brain is not reasonable. You cannot reason your way around that part of the brain. You really have to learn how to shift and work with it in the ways that it likes to move. And it doesn't use talk. That's why talk therapy does not create the type of change that this part of the brain needs. So yes, thank you so much for sharing that, Jennifer. I appreciate your vulnerability. That is very not rigid. So I appreciate that. And it takes risks, right? Life is a lot about, everything in life is a risk. Everything in life is a risk. And the more we can tolerate risk, the more we can heal our emotional wounds, the more we have the safety to be able to take the risks that we need to take in life. A lot of times we get stuck, and it's just we need to make the next right move, but the next right move is always a risk. And if we think that it's too dangerous, we won't take that risk and we'll stay back here. And so we need to create the emotional wellness and start unblocking ourselves emotionally and mentally, so that we feel great about taking that risk, because most of the risks in life are not dangerous. But that is the only way to receive the rewards that you want in your life, is risk. All of life is rewarded by risk, right? There's risk management, there's risk taking, there's just risk, right? And there's no way around that. But the safer you feel inside, the more free you will be to take the risks that benefit you, and to be able to I don't know the word I'm looking for. I want to say invest, but get a return on your investment? Maybe not. I don't know. But but you know what I mean? Like that's like this is where like the like even the wealthiest people like they are paid well because they take risk, right? If the people that get the most love and the deepest loving relationships get that way because they can take risk, right? But in order to take risk, it's not about if somebody else is trustworthy, if somebody else is worth the risk. It's always about you. It's always about, can I tolerate the risk? We don't have to look any farther. You know, there's so many people that tell me, well, I can't trust them. I can't trust them. Well, no, you can't trust them. I mean, let me tell you what, I can trust my children and husband, the men in my family. I'm sorry, I'm gonna put them out like this. I can trust that they're gonna pee all over my toilet seat. I can trust in that. I can put money on that any day. Can I trust that they're not going to? No, right? And we all have that kind of we all have that kind of stuff. Do I still trust them in my bathroom? Okay, I don't really trust them, but I still let them in the bathroom, right? Um, and so trust, we don't have to trust people to be able to love them or to be able to take risks with them. As a matter of fact, many of the most powerful people in your life have taken the risk of loving you when you were not very lovable, when you were not easy to love, right? They took a risk on you. And I'm not saying you should run out and take risks. I'm not saying that, because it may be harmful to you, right? You have to heal yourself first so that you feel good about your risks. You really shouldn't be taking risks that you don't feel great about. So I'm giving you a little extra here to put in your pot and stir it around, right? So having said that, I think that's all I have to say on this topic. So let me come here, and she says, how can I flow? We flow, Cassandra, by, you know, really the flow comes out of, it comes from healing. It comes from being grounded in yourself. And it comes from also some of the resolving trauma helps you flow. I mean, there's so many people that are flowing wonderfully. A trauma happens and it blocks them. Trauma is powerful. And so really the more trauma work you do healing your trauma, the more your natural flow will come right back online. Some of the things we want to look for, we want to help your brain work through being chaos or rigid, right? We want to be able to start having healthy boundaries. That's part of being rigid, is you got to learn how to let your boundaries flow. You got to let people in and keep people out, not just keep everybody out and keep everybody in, right? Over here with chaos, you've got to start being able to build your boundaries, right? You've got to be able to start having healthy boundaries. And, you know, when I say that, you think, I don't want any boundaries. I used to tell this to somebody in my life, and they would just scoff at me when I said the word healthy boundaries. They'd be like, that's stupid. So it's okay to have that reaction. That just lets you know that there's work to do. Do the work. Do the work. This resolves beautifully. This does not have to be something that you're carrying around for the rest of your life. Will you have to put some elbow grease into it? Yes. Will you have to work diligently for a little bit? Yes. But the sooner you do that, the sooner you get to move through, because the brain is ready to heal. The brain wants to heal. And so, and your mind and your emotions are ready for healing. That's what they're there for. They're there to help you heal. So you flow like that. The other ways you flow is by receiving and giving. You can't just be giving and not receiving. That leads to depletion. And you can't just be giving and receiving and not giving. That leads to, I don't know, maybe getting bloated and like gonna pop. I don't know. I don't know what happens there, but you got to keep the flow, right? On a cellular level, if it's taking stuff in and not getting stuff out, then that creates death, right, to the cells. So we need to have that same interaction, that same flow. So that's a little bit how you can flow. And the more you learn and use the interventions that really create change in the brain, the better it is, the more powerful it is. So I think I answer this. So so right now, if you're feeling like, hey, this is really a problem in my life, and I can see how this is affecting my relationships and my children, really, I want to go back for a second. This really does impact children. Children that I was raised in more chaos, so I was like, I'm over here in Richardville. I don't know about that over there, but I'm going over here. And children in rigid places are like, I know what that leads to, not doing it. I'm going to stay as far away from that as I possibly can. But we want to create flow, and we want to be flexible, and we want to have tolerance for all of the parts of being human, right? And our children, especially because they're young, they're experiencing and exploring all of it, right? They're exploring lying, stealing, cheating, loving, leaving you wonderful notes of joy, and and doing all these wonderful things and all these hideous things. And it's all the same. They're just practicing life skills, and we need to be able to tolerate that and guide them through it, right? But if we are rigid land and we can't tolerate lying, I'm going to use your example, Jennifer, because you are not alone. If we're there, then when our kids start lying, we're like, oh my God, no, you can't lie. This is bad. And it's like this whole freak out. And it was just an opportunity to experience and to change and to learn what they don't like, right? And to learn what, if you do this, these are the things that happen, right? We're more available to really be with our kids, right? And if we're chaotic and we have a kid that needs structure, and then we're like pulling them into this chaos, and it's not helpful for them, then we're stuck in that as well. So really, healing yourself is just so magical, and and really resolving these emotional wounds is powerful, super duper powerful. And so yeah, so if this is something that you are like, I need to get this out of my life, I am happy to spend an hour with you to help you get clear on what's not working, where you want to go, and to help you create a plan to get from A to B. And so I do that. I offer that for free. This is my service to the world. This is one of the ways that I'm helping the world be a better place. And so I offer you that. We'll spend an hour together. It really will be me talking with you. I spoke with somebody today, had such a great time with them. And she was just like, I didn't know like it would really be you. And it really is me. And so we will talk. We'll spend that hour. We'll get clear on what's not working, what you want to see happen, like I said, and create a plan. So if you're ready for that, you can go to rachelmcleod.com/apply. And I'm going to write that in here right now. No, not /apply. That will take you someplace entirely different. So rachelmcleod.com/call. And you can get on there, grab a spot on my calendar, and I'll call you at the time that you choose, and we'll do this, okay? So good night. Thank you so much for participating and sharing your comments. I really appreciate that. It just makes this so interactive and fun. So, and then I really know what you want, right? And I can meet those needs instead of thinking and just talking from my head, which I love to do as well, so don't get me wrong. But I love to make sure that your questions are answered and that you are rocking, because that's what this is all about. This is about you being awesome. This is about me being awesome. This is about all of us really stepping into all of our healing and really getting to the places where we can live our potential, and that we can be the humans that we know we were meant to be and that we're proud of. And that's really what this is about. So I will see you all around. Talk with you soon. Take care. Bye.